This is my friend Ethan. Ethan has autism and struggles to switch to new tasks at school. His teacher, Miss Davis, is confused because her previous student, Carly, who was also on the autism spectrum, had no problem switching to new tasks throughout the day. Ethan has an executive function impairment, but Carly doesn't. Executive functions can be thought of as the air traffic control system of your brain. They guide and regulate other brain systems so that we can achieve our goals. Executive function deficits have been proposed as a possible contributor to many of the difficulties individuals with autism experience. However, there's been a lot of inconsistencies in the research of this theory, so it's difficult to determine whether a global executive function impairment really is a core feature of autism. First, not everybody on the spectrum has an executive function impairment, like Carly, for example. Second, while some research says that there's not enough activity in the front part of the brain, especially in regions critical to executive functions in individuals with autism, others say that there's too much activity in these regions. Because of this, it's really hard to explain why some children, like Ethan, struggle in Miss Davis's classroom, while others, like Carly, don't. So I calculated the weighted average of where the brain activity was focused in 16 fMRI studies. This resulted in 739 participants, 356 with autism and 383 typically developing, ranging in age from 7 to 52. This type of analysis is called an activation likelihood estimation, and it allowed me to identify overall patterns in brain activity during executive function tasks and draw conclusions. At first glance, the activity in the front part of the brain and the prefrontal cortex looks pretty similar in both groups. However, in the autism group, this activity happened at distinctly different locations within this region. This is important because the prefrontal cortex is critical to executive functions. Second, in the autism group, this activation didn't extend past the prefrontal cortex into other relevant executive regions, like above and behind the ear and the parietal network. This means that the autistic participants may be relying on a very limited region of the brain, rather than a team of multiple brain regions to accomplish executive functions. Finally, when I compared the younger participants to the older, the autism group showed a different developmental pattern. The activity that I saw earlier in the front of the brain disappeared. Instead, there was no significant activation until the age of 25, at which point it was in regions of the brain typically unrelated to executive functions. This research gives us a picture of what the executive function network looks like in the autistic brain. This picture is critical to creating targeted interventions to better equip teachers and practitioners to support individuals on the spectrum, like my friend